Quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Today, behind the glass, flying the board. Thank you, Ted. He'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation as I broadcast from our palatial, but not overly ostentatious studios here in Westboro, atop the Carberry Towers. Our text line is up and running, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Text that like you would any number. There's a screen here in the studio. I'll see your text pop up there. I'll try to work it into the conversation. And don't forget, WCRN, like thousands of other radio stations, we do stream on the TuneIn app 24/7. So you can tune into AM 830 on the dial or use the TuneIn app on your devices. It literally takes seconds to download if you don't have it. And then you can take us anywhere. Now, I, as some of the other hosts are starting to do, will stream the show. I stream my show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and even live onto Rumble. Go to the Joe Mangiacotti Show channel on Rumble. And later it's loaded up to Twitch TV, a new streaming channel. So right now, the streaming your TV outnumbers terrestrial TV, dish TV, and cable TV combined. So America has gone to streaming their TVs, and Twitch TV is a new streaming channel. Download it like you do Hulu or Netflix or Sling or any of the other channels, and you got great programming, and also starting to be carried on the AUN network. That's I think 14 TV stations in Nevada and Northern California. But anyway, I mean, I just like the idea that I'm being aired in California, Ted. That just kind of kills me. Although there's probably more conservative people in Northern California. No, actually, San Francisco. I think the conservatives in California are like Orange County.
I don't think there are conservatives.
There's a couple. There are a couple that keep quiet, although I don't know so much now. When you have Gavin Newsom, I mean, we'll get into that. But 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Join us. We always have a few people streaming. Like to see more people get up on that. In the text line, nobody's really text during the show. Tons of messages come in when I'm off here, but 617-297-8388. So you heard in the news, Tom Cruise receives the U.S. Navy's highest civilian honor. Now, he's been awarded this Distinguished Public Service Award, highest civilian honor granted by the Navy, and it's mainly in recognition for the significant contributions to the military through his film roles. Now, the award was presented by U.S. Secretary of Navy Carlos Del Toro during a ceremony at Long Cross Studios near London. Cruise's portrayal of Navy aviator, get that one out, guys, Pete Maverick Mitchell in the 86 film Top Gun. Then there was a couple of years ago, right, the sequel, Top Gun Maverick. Saw them both, loved them both, but being a pilot, you would. It's been credited with boosting public awareness and appreciation for the Navy, recruiting, especially after the 86 original Top Gun. There's a whole generation of fighter pilots that would attribute it to that movie. I mean, the recruitment and joining and volunteering for Navy pilots and pilots in general after the first Top Gun in 86 was through the roof. So it really increased the recruitment And crews express admiration for servicemen and women, stating, "To lead is to serve." Now, I was curious about that because I looked at it. He has Top Gun, the 2 movies there. Then he portrayed a JAG officer or lawyer in A Few Good Men. He actually portrayed a German officer in Valkyrie. Remember that movie, right? That had to do with the attempted assassination of Hitler. And the character he played was, of course, executed because it was failed. He plays a secret agent, right, in Mission Impossible. What are they up to? 28 movies now? I mean, I think he's just coming out with the final. It has to be the final. Like this, and somebody can text to correct this. It's 6 or 7. I mean, I think there's at least 6 Mission Impossibles based on the old TV show, but he's the final one. He's got to be 60-ish, right? I mean, he's right in that range. But there's also a movie. I don't know if a lot of people know the Reacher movies. Jack Reacher. He plays a Marine. I think it was a Marine CID agent, Major. And it picks up the movie. There's 2 of those. And it picks up that he left the service because he got disillusioned by the American dream. But he was an investigator, Marine investigator with CID. That's what my father was in the Marine Corps. He was a CID investigator and agent there. But there's two movies. So I mean, he's playing a technically retired major. So he's played the military role, even a German one, many times. All right. Another thing I wanted to mention is I'm very impressed with Kim Og. All right. So she is the Houston DA who's seeking the death penalty for Joycelyn Nungray case. And she's a Democrat. So she only has, 13 days, 14 days or something left, and she got voted out. Yeah, believe it or not. Harris County District Attorney Kim Og, she did announce that her intention to seek the death penalty for Franklin Jose Pina Ramos and Jose Martinez Rangel. Now, these are both Venezuelan nationals, and they're the ones who are accused of the rape and murder of 12-year-old Joycelyn Nungray in Houston. Maybe that's why it's Houston, guys. That's like Houston's like the liberal dot in a very red Texas, right? I think Austin's a little bit liberal too. I don't know if Dallas is quite that much, but Houston, big time liberal enclave there. Now, the suspects have allegedly, they kidnapped this girl, they sexually assaulted her, strangled Joycelyn, and then they left the body in a creek. They tried to actually sink the body to wash any evidence away. They had been, allegedly, right, they had been drinking. This poor girl, 12-year-old girl, was upset, or whatever the reason, she ran away from home. They were drinking, they snagged her, allegedly did all this. Both men entered the United States illegally, and then they were released by Border Patrol. So they did enter. We had them in custody because the Border Patrol had them. They let them go with one of those notices to appear in court at a later date. And I have done this multiple times, gone through the notice to appear or notice to report. When they get the appear, you actually leave there with a court date. Report 10 a.m., such and such a date, such and such a location for your immigration hearing or your asylum hearing. That takes about 45 minutes, maybe a little longer. Well, the other one is a notice to report. That takes 15 to 20 minutes. So they're cranky. They look at the numbers, the millions of illegals that we intercept. Let's put a pin in the getaways and the ones we don't know about. So if you have to process hundreds of people in your shift, the Border Patrol is doing these notice to reports. Once they give you that piece of paper, by the way, you're technically legally here because we've acknowledged you, we've accepted you, and we're giving you this paper to report to immigration or to appear in front of a judge. Now, the report to immigration means you can go anywhere in the country. So you're now actually free to roam around. And they'll ask you, do you want to go somewhere? We'll get you a bus ticket or a train ticket, and we'll fly you to whatever city you want. Woo! On the taxpayer's dollar, of course. And then you're there. And I think you can check on this, but I'm pretty sure it's 120 days after you get that piece of paper, one of the two, from the Border Patrol, that you're then allowed to apply for a work permit. So basically, you come, hey, Border Patrol, here I am. Tell them your name, and it can be any name because you don't have to provide any documents, by the way, none whatsoever. They'll just take whatever you say. And the other part, which is a whole bad thing, and that's for another show, is you can have a minor child with you and just identify them as kin to you, and they take that. No problem. And then 3 months later or 4 months later, you can apply for a work permit. Now you're technically legally in the country because Border Patrol has interacted with you. Then you can, 4 months later, you can legally work. Now there's a whole nother aspect to this that I think I'll do it on my podcast, and I'll do some of it on this show. But there's the whole dark side of this, folks, and that is the fact that most of these people who are coming here, I mean, the cartels have turned human trafficking into a multi-billion-dollar business. And most of these people, say the Guatemalan people, they don't have 18 grand, 15 grand, 8 grand. So they have to go into debt. So you've got the coyotes who are doing this as a business. So they get here, they're illegally here, they got to get illegal work. And that means either working for gangs or the cartels or sex trafficking, human trafficking, sex trade, drug whatever it is to pay off the coyote because they have that debt. And your family back in wherever you came from, El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, it doesn't matter. They pay the price if you disappear into the interior. So there's a whole dark side of this, and that these illegals are owned by the cartel till they pay those debts off. And I have had interviewed and talked with people who have gone through this, and they have been basically held against their will in transit for an additional payment to keep coming in. It's a very nasty, nasty business, folks. But we got to take our first break here on the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Our text line, 617-297-8388. Screen's right in front of you, folks, 617-297-8388. All right, stick with us. We'll be back in 2 and 10 with the second segment of the Wednesday afternoon edition.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Those things we most cherish are all put at risk through the improper disposal of mercury in everyday items. Fluorescent lamps, thermometers, thermostats all contain mercury. Mercury Recovery Program is designed to assist your community in the safe disposal of this heavy metal. For more information about where to dispose of these products, contact your local Board of Health, Department of Public Works, or visit our website at keepmercuryfromrising.org. Working together, we can keep our environment safe.
Attention all contractors. The Massachusetts Mercury Management Act makes it illegal to improperly dispose of old thermostats in the trash. They contain mercury that can be harmful to human health and the environment. Building and HVAC contractors, plumbers, and electricians, please properly dispose of all mercury thermostats. Contact your local health or public works department for information on where to safely dispose of thermostats in your community. Visit online, keepmercuryfromrising.org, www.win-waste.org for details. Brought to you by Win Waste Innovations. Performance for the planet.
All right, folks, welcome back to this second segment of the Wednesday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Text line up and running. Screen is right in front of me, folks. If you text this number, 617-297-8388, it appears, and you do it just like you text anyone else. Instead of mom, pick me up, or honey, get some milk, you text me your opinion, your thought, or give me the information I was looking for as far as how many Mission Impossibles are we up to here. And that is 617-297-8388. So look at this is really bothering me. This public outcry over the CEO's murder. Not the outcry over the murder. That's a normal. We should have that. The recent murder of a very prominent CEO in the healthcare industry, it sparked significant public outcry. But see, there's a survey conducted by Axios. It revealed that 60%, because you know how they go somewhat agree, okay with that kind of thing, 60% of the respondents believe the protest against the CEO was justified. Protest, in this case, means murder. 41% surveyed in Axios's survey, obviously, approved of the murder. And then the rest, to bring it to 60%, they can see it. They're not upset that a man was shot in the back, cold-blooded, on the streets of Manhattan.
Do you think these people voted for Harris or Trump?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big betting man, but I would lay a couple bucks down on that one. These findings highlight deep division in public opinion regarding the incident. Think about that. It's this eat the rich mentality thing that we got going on here. That recent assassination of CEO Brian Thompson, it's totally a chilling reminder of the depths to which societal discourse has actually plunged, folks. And even more alarming is the disturbing support his heinous acts has garnered from certain quarters, reflecting a dangerous eat the rich mentality. It threatens every fabric of law-abiding society, folks. This is back on December 4th, right? Thompson was brutally murdered by a coward. He was walking down, I don't forget the hotel, it's irrelevant. He was in town from Minnesota for, the meetings, year-end meeting, and they talk about what the company's doing and all that. And he was shot in the back in cold blood from a deranged, broken, cowardly boy in Midtown Manhattan. An act allegedly perpetrated by Luigi Mangione, who has since been indicted on charges including first-degree murder, as an act of terrorism, by the way, too. This premeditated act was designed to instill fear and chaos, a tactic reminiscent of the violent upheavals that have historically accompanied the rise of oppressive regimes. If you want to look at these comparisons, what is perhaps even more unsettling is the reaction from certain segments of the public. See, in the aftermath of Thompson's death, a vocal fringe has cheered the murder. They view it as justified, an act against perceived corporate greed. They've switched out the man, the husband, the father, the flesh and blood man for a symbol of corporate greed. And just like they tried to do with Donald Trump by dehumanizing him and then going after anybody who did anything they perceived to humanize him. I've seen Tulsi or heard Tulsi Gabbard tell the story several times back in 2016 when he first got elected as a congresswoman she was then. She went to meet with him at Trump Tower. Remember, I talked about that, right? Back in 2016 when he got elected, the Trump Tower in Manhattan was the center. Now it's Mar-a-Lago. But she said as soon as she left the meeting, her phone was blowing up with colleagues at that time, her colleagues were Democratic members of the House and Democratic operatives, saying, how dare you meet with him? How dare you humanize him? So they've dehumanized Thompson here, and they're switching him out for an icon of corporate greed. And the victim, he's the victim. It's beyond me that this is Thompson and his company. They haven't even been connected to this animal. So United Healthcare, it's not like that was his insurance company. We haven't found out if it is. I have not seen it. That they denied his grandmother some kind of life-saving treatment or something to that nature. So I still don't understand if somebody knows what the connection is, why this POS decided to shoot Brian Thompson down. I'd love to know that. 508-871-7000. This response is not only deeply un-American, but it is also indicative of a growing acceptance of violence as a means to the end. We saw this a couple years ago, now a few years ago, summer 2020, summer of love. This eat the rich mentality is a slippery slope. It leads to the erosion of the rule of law, breakdown of civil society. It echoes the violent methods through which communism has historically been installed, where class envy is weaponized to justify atrocities. The glorification of such acts, it sets a very dangerous precedent, folks, suggesting that murder is an acceptable form of protest against economic disparities. We allowed and we tolerated it. And are we not doing that now? Even some of the left supported and those in power ordered police to stand down and even evacuate police stations and let the protesters burn it down. Let them blow off steam. Remember that summer? Now, me, as a pretty staunch advocate for law and order, I find this trend deeply troubling. Our society is built on principles of justice and due process, not on mob rule and vigilantism. The support for Thompson's murderer is a manifestation of ignorance, and it's a disregard for the sanctity of human life. It is imperative that we as a society condemn this act unequivocally and reaffirm our commitment to resolving grievances through lawful and peaceful means, folks. The path we're headed down, excuse me, if this mentality persists, is one of chaos and tyranny. We must remember that the prosperity and freedoms we enjoy are the result of a system that, while imperfect, provides mechanisms for change and improvement without resorting to violence. To abandon these principles in favor of this anarchy, get that out, Joe. Anarchy and retribution is to undermine the very foundation of democracy. So pretty much the murder of Brian Thompson and the subsequent support he has received are stark reminders of the dangers posed by extremist ideologies that promote violence. It is incumbent upon all of us to reject the eat the rich mentality and to uphold the values of law, order, and justice that have long been the bedrock of our society. And Ted, you wanted to
this is a national security issue. This is a threat to our republic.
I agree. It absolutely is. If it becomes acceptable to kill a CEO, or and where does it stop? Board of directors, are you allowed to take out the manager of the local fast food store if they got your order wrong? Where is it? I hope, I know the extradition and all this, but boy, I hope this animal, if guilty, is found guilty and never breathes free air again. And there's got to be a way when these judge sentences, right? Look what you can't get around the pardons. It's in the Constitution. It's there. It's a power given to the office of the presidency. And governors have it too. But some of the people, and we talked about that, some of these people that Joe Biden let, and I'm telling you, do you really think for a second that Joe Biden is sitting at the Resolute desk, poring over dockets and case files and, Bureau of Prison reports, parole board determined? No. So why? Who's making the decisions? Do you think Joe Biden actually read anything he has signed in 4 years as president? Do you think he ever read anything he signed or voted for as a senator? But the situation with this unbelievable percent of people who are okay with Brian Thompson's murder, and some beyond okay, but agree with it and accept it and now encourage it. I watched the news coverage yesterday and last night with the idiots out there with signs, more dead CEOs, please. Seriously, folks. Absolutely unacceptable. Where are these people coming from? Who are their parents? Did they go off the rails from home or in school? Or did it have anything to do with their diet of movies and TV shows? I don't know. Social media can corrupt your thought process very quickly if you go down those rabbit holes. I was talking to a friend the other night. He's complaining he didn't get a lot of sleep. He was tired at work. I said, well, you don't feel good? No, I started watching Instagram videos and he was scrolling until 4 a.m. I said, you have a watch. It's time's on your phone, right? Totally got wrapped up in it. And this happens, right? We every once in a while, we see one of these stories about how many hours a day kids are on screen. And you got apps that you can put into parents, you can put into your phones that calculate screen time. And why are kids allowed to even have phones during class time and be on them? They should be put into a basket walking in the classroom, collected on the way out or something to that effect. Folks, we have to take our mid-show break here in the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Lines open and available. Back in 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. Partly sunny and mild this afternoon with highs around 50 degrees. Overnight tonight, we're talking after the evening commute. We've got some showers that come on through, and with it, we've got the chance for some mixing or a little bit of snow north and west of 495. So it could be a little slick for traveling in those locations overnight tonight. We're going to stick with plain old rain from Worcester to Boston. It's over by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow it's sunshine and 40s for the afternoon. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, the text line is available. Screen's in front of me, folks. 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Did you catch that these astronauts, they're still up there? Remember this, the guy and the girl, right? Astronauts, they remain in space beyond the initially planned mission duration.
Now they're not going to get back till March.
Exactly. They're not coming back till after the first of the year due to unforeseen circumstances, like Boeing can't get their act together. The return has been delayed, and the astronauts, well, they're now expected to return to Earth after the first of the year, as Ted said, probably March. Elon was jumping in here, right? They were going to use SpaceX, and something has not happened or not happened. Maybe it has to do with the entire government now turning against Elon. I don't know. But NASA has assured the astronauts, well, they're in good health, and all necessary measures are being taken to ensure a safe return. Now, one of the things about this, though, the female on this mission, she's lost a noticeable amount of weight. So people are talking about that. They're very concerned and whether or not she is fine. And as we know, because we can pick any story you want to go to. You want to talk about the drones? You want to talk about the examples of when the government lies to us all the time? So just because they're saying that they're both doing fine and they're perfect health, it's not that they don't have any alternative. They are literally lost in space. They're not lost. They're stuck in space. It takes quite a bit to get into lower Earth orbit and coordinate this. And they are stuck there. So, Ted.
It was noticeable yesterday regarding the coverage of this announcement when they didn't say anything about the failed Boeing NASA agreement, but said that SpaceX won't be able to get there until March.
Yeah. Like they transferred it to SpaceX, that this is a SpaceX failure. And it's not a SpaceX failure. It's a SpaceX coming to the rescue. And this is short order. All these wonderful things we see Elon Musk getting done with SpaceX, including the trips to Mars, these are years to plan in advance. And we just don't have, this is not Star Trek. We don't have the technology to hop into the shuttle and use, anti-gravity propulsion and break the bounds of Earth. No, this is using the most powerful rockets man has created with perfect timing as to the rotation and placement of Earth and the items that you have to, and it's just absolutely not something you can just throw. And it's Boeing's equipment who failed, not SpaceX. So good point, Ted. I'm bringing that up. Going to talk about our neighbors here to the north, our 51st state. Canadian Prime Minister, also known as Governor Justin Trudeau's administration, is facing some unprecedented challenges. And you can't help. I mean, Trump is trolling the man. He keeps referring to Canada as the 51st state, him as governor. In the sudden resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, it sent some shockwaves through the Liberal Party. Freeland's departure, accompanied by a scathing letter criticizing Trudeau's fiscal policies, has intensified calls for the governor to step down. Otherwise known as the as the prime minister's resignation. In this internal strife, it's coming on the heels of course, Trump's tariff threats. And she's making a good point, even though she's part of the Liberal Party. Now they're going to turn on her, of course, because the left seems to eat their dissidents. And she's pointing out that this stuff is crazy, and you're giving checks out to illegals in Canada, and you're spending money you don't have, and you're getting rid of revenue streams. And the threat of tariffs are because you're not being normal with your policies. And like Trump said, if you can't survive without ripping off the United States, you have to examine what's going on. Do you know we have a lot of imports from Canada? Their economy depends on them being able to sell everything from energy, oil and timber, steel, all kinds of stuff. Hey, what was your joke about CANA? Canada, how do they spell?
They developed a 12-step program for Canadians to try to get them to stop using that expression, eh? It's called A.
Exactly. So she wrote a very scathing letter about his fiscal policies, the country's fiscal policies. People are, will he last? This strife comes on the heels of Trump's tariff threats, which have further strained U.S.-Canadian relations. Trudeau's recent comments perceived at chastising Americans. I got into this, I think it was yesterday, for the electoral choice here. And it's only added fuel to the fire because he came on to lecture Americans, or not even lecture us. He was talking to his countrymen, but pointing out that we chose, once again, not to elect a female. Which is so asinine because that wasn't the choice. The choice was Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And we chose not to vote for the same type of administration, policies, and shadow government that was running Joe Biden to run Kamala Harris, a woman that could not articulate her positions, much less defend them. Yet we knew exactly what she was all about because she has been in the public eye for many years. DA, Attorney General, Senator, do nothing VP. So we know who she is. We know what she is. And we know what was going to come. And we made a choice. Here's an idea. Put a female up. Actually, put a very qualified candidate who happens to be a female. And we don't have a problem voting for her. With the same people who are bitching about not voting for a woman and that you need to vote for a woman, would they have that same argument if it was Nikki Haley, Candace Owen, Bonnie, any of these very articulate, smart, successful women? Lara Trump, she might be a senator from Florida, which I know I love to watch people left heads pop when I say, well, you've got Trump, and then maybe at the end of this 4-year term, Don Jr. might be ripe, and then maybe Lara Trump. And by then, Barron will be of legal age to run. We could look at a good 2-3 decades of Trump's in the White House. Watch some heads pop. So this is just, it's straining the relations. That's fine. But the whole idea, if you haven't caught on to the threats of tariffs, is to strain the relationship. And if you need a quick lesson in the art of the negotiation or the art of the deal in negotiating, watch the clip with the impromptu press conference with SoftBank, who has committed to $100 billion in investments in the U.S. economy because that Japanese investor is saying, I believe in the American economy now. Under the Trump administration, I see this. And that's happening all around the globe. And Trump puts him on the spot and asked him right now, will you commit to $200 billion? Guy was beside himself. He couldn't do anything but laugh. And it ended with him saying, I'll try to make that happen. And Trump not only shakes his hand, but go watch the video. He literally pulls the man into him, puts his armor, and the guy's like 1.5 feet shorter than Trump, right? He comes up to maybe chest level. And Trump just pulls him in, shaking his hand, wraps him right into this like bear hug, and says, "Great, it's a done deal." That's a close. That is a strong, strong close. Now, the other thing that, again, this comes up every once in a while, and I got to talk about the Senate Democrats are proposing to abolish the Electoral College. Now, this thing comes up every once in a while. It's an asinine statement. It's clear why we have the Electoral College. Our founding fathers were brilliant in deciding this is how we need to actually elect a president, so that mob mentality and majority thing isn't going to rule, in that, you know, California and New York are going to control who's the president for the rest of the existence.
It's another example of attacking due process.
Absolutely. What happened to preserving democracy? This is the way we do it, folks. Now, this is the same party that came up with the super delegates, right? But back on our soil, let's come back to America here for a moment. There's a group of Senate Democrats who are introduced, again, they've introduced a constitutional amendment. And that's how it has to be done, because it's how we elect a president is very clearly spelled out. Now, I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure it occupied a lot of the debate when the country was being formed on just how we decide. Because remember, what we didn't want is a ruling class. We didn't want a monarchy. We didn't want to go back to bowing and scraping and kings and queens. So this would have to be an amendment to abolish the Electoral College. And they argue that the current system undermines the principle of one person, one vote. Our entire elective republic is based on the one vote to elect the people to represent us and run the government. Let's put a pin in that. It points to instances where presidents have been elected without winning the popular vote. Although Trump did win the popular vote this time. However, critics contend that eliminating the Electoral College would diminish the influence of smaller states, which is why it's done this way, effectively allowing densely populated urban areas centers to dictate election outcomes forever, and that would hasten and speed up the demise of the country. The proposal has reignited a nationwide debate over the balance between federalism and direct democracy. I don't know, folks. It's just let it fade away like the other stupid ideas. Hey, we got to take a third and final break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. Hey, phone lines open, 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing. Fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job Perner Logging and Land Clearing Make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. The lines are open, available at 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Don't forget the text line. I'm staring at the screen here, folks. 617-297-8388. Hey, striking turn of events. Some Democrats are now openly acknowledging what many conservatives have pointed out for years. Talk about welcome to the party, guys. That Joe Biden's declining cognitive health is actually a thing and not just something that's a right talking point.
What?
Yeah, telling me surprise. Reports suggest that even with his inner circle, there were doubts about his ability to serve another term. This admission coming after the election raises concerns about transparency and the lengths to which party leaders went to maintain power, potentially at the expense of the nation's well-being. And this actually, I'm sorry, really has to come back on Kamala Harris, because she was telling us up until the day that we knew that he was fine.
Covered, Joe. Running cover.
Absolutely. And she needs to answer for that. And every time she runs, if ever she runs again, if she can shake a dollar out of a donor, which is a $20 million debt to pay after ripping through $2 billion, and convince donors who if they have that much money to donate, can they be that stupid? That Ted's saying, that either she really thought this, but how? Remember, they were telling us that not in front of the camera, but in the White House, in the West Wing, and behind closed doors, he's engaged and sharp and right on in doing gymnastics and running around the interns. And then we, of course, see him. So I know that saying better late than never is a typical thing. I'm not so sure that should apply to Democrats, to those who are finally admitting the obvious about Joe Biden. He clearly not have had served another 4 years as president. And I know, I was saying it. It's all on tape, folks. I didn't think he would be. I said 2 years ago, he's not going to be on the ballot. And I was right about that. I honestly did not see Kamala being on the ballot. I thought she would have been in a primary and she would have been wiped out like in 2019.
Nobody could have.
Yeah. And I think part of this, I think Joe Biden kind of announced her, or, endorsed her immediately, so they didn't have a chance to do this. But she lied, knowingly lied. So you see, the thing is, when you wait until not only after he dropped out of the presidential race, but after the election is over as well, for these admissions, it's just a little bit suspect. You were trying to hide this and you were trying to hoodwink the country. It's just, no, I'm sorry. This is not something that can be done with an apology or my bad. The financial person for the DNC, Ling, I think, she seemed generally like blown away the day after the election, saying, they lied to me. They said that he, and it's like, lady, do you not watch the news at all? Or are you seriously tuned to MSNBC or CNN? It's bad, folks. You don't get a pass for this. And you just shouldn't get a pass for the COVID and the pandemic and all of the stupid stuff you did there. 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Let me jump to the phones. Ed in Worcester is waiting patiently. Hey, Ed, Merry Christmas. Let's see.
Merry Christmas, Joe. My voice sounds familiar. It is the same voice that you use in your ad for your show. So Happy to.
Did we pull you for something, a promo?
Oh, you didn't make me. You made me famous, but only to me and my kids.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So no, in your local ad, when you say just listen to one of our callers, that is my voice.
Oh, all right. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, and meant sincerely, by the way, too.
Awesome.
So I was curious about really two things. I would like, if you could, I was not able to hear it, and I did not go back and listen to it, but your interview that you had on WCRN with Jim McGovern not too long ago. I'm curious about how he plans to remake himself, if at all. But also, my kind of gut feeling is that a lot of this stuff will be forgotten by people. And a lot of politicians, Democrats especially, in the state of Massachusetts, Seth Moulton included, will go back to remake themselves as something they otherwise were not. My belief is this, and you have to do it bullet point by bullet point. I think every single one of these things, including trying to sell off the portions of steel for the fence at the southern border for pennies on the dollar in the closing days, the Hunter Biden
Sabotage.
laptop, the
Straight up
pardons.
sabotage.
These things all need to be hung around the neck like a millstone of any Democrat that runs. Otherwise, you have nothing. You're just going to have a bunch of milk toast, middle of the road campaigns where Democrats are going to profess to have been, well, I thought this at that time, and Jim McGovern is not going to tell you that he was censured and silenced more than 4 times on the floor of the House of Representatives for making bombastic, existential threats to democracy claims about Donald Trump. And one of them was he was silenced 2 weeks before, or 1 week before his assassination attempt on him. I think he needs to be held responsible and accountable for it. So I'll let you just tell me how your interview went with him. I'm curious if there's what your takeaways are from it.
Sure. So you're talking. So before the election, I had reached out, or actually his opponent reached out, and once I accepted for him to come on with the FCC Fair Doctrine Act, of course, I reached out to the McGovern campaign and let them know. Now, I can be honest with you, Ed, and all listeners. Usually, when I do that, and I always contact both sides, usually the Democratic side either decline or never respond.
I was surprised.
Truthfully, that's
right.
what happened. But I go through the I make the offer, and if they decline, that's on them. But I didn't control the airtime that a candidate has, so I hadn't seen an email back from somebody saying, "Hey, okay." So he actually called in, and I think it was you, Ted, right?
Yeah, I took that call.
You just put Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't say Congressman McGovern or Jim the nothing. So I'm thinking it might be we have a couple Jims who call, and I'm thinking it's Jim, but it turned out to be Jim McGovern. So I wasn't really, honestly, I was not prepared for that. However, I don't have to be prepared to call out some BS. Mm-hmm. I think it was fine. I know that it caused the station to get some comments and some emails. Mostly the favorite or the memorable one was a voicemail left on the station voicemail saying, "Hey, I was mowing my lawn, listening to the station, and I had to just find out, is this live? When did this happen? Is this going on right now?" Because I think and I'd have to go back and listen because nothing was scripted, nothing was rehearsed. So whatever I said was off the top of my head, and I know that he said some things that just was wrong. I know he said something about January 6th or whatever, and I said, wait, back up. Trump actually said peacefully and patriotically go down protest. He tweeted out, and guess what? Before Elon Musk bought X, and it was Twitter, they deleted it. But the Trump administration or the Trump campaign people, they screenshot and they saved it. And so there were things like that he said, and I couldn't. I know he was there to promote, and I said to him at one point, but the reason you're here is to tell us why we should be voting for you. and why not the challenger? You've been there 28 years. A matter of fact, and I don't. You said you didn't listen. I pointed out to him and reminded him, I was a guy who interviewed you when you were candidate McGovern on a show called Express Your Opinion at 12 noon on the old Marlboro station.
Right.
So I've been doing this since he's been in office, which is over a generation if you look at it.
Yeah.
And why? Why should people keep putting you back there? And that's because of Worcester and Amherst, basically, or Northampton. I mean, he's
that's
always
true.
going to have those.
That piece of gerrymandering is almost intolerable. The fact that you can loop around and lump Northampton and Amherst in, loop around to the northern Worcester County, and come down and grab 3 districts of Worcester and call it a district of people, of voters, is a little bit bizarre. That dilutes the vote of the people in East Brookfield, Spencer.
That's
Leicester,
the whole idea.
West Brookfield.
And this whole thing, Ed, with this, electoral, do at the Electoral College, and you got Hochul out there, and Hochul actually gerrymandered stuff in New York that it got overturned in court. She was so blatant and bad about it.
Are there no challenges to the Massachusetts gerrymandering that occurs every time we lose? And because we lose population, we lost a congressional seat, and that was the genesis of the redistricting. But
didn't we? I could have sworn when I was a kid we had like 13 or 14 Congress people, and what do we have 8 now? I mean,
I think we have 11.
11?
But that includes our 2 senators. So
we had congressmen. It's
9.
like 9. Yeah, it's
right.
Now.
So
I mean, we lost 4 or 5 seats over the years, which is representative of a huge amount of people, which of course have relocated. I mean, look at under the Biden years, how many people have relocated to Florida from Massachusetts alone? I think last thing I saw in it was like 48,000 licenses have changed. I mean, that's a big swath of people.
When you look at this, I supposedly there are many people. If you're losing congressional representation, I'm supposed there are some in the rest of the country that just don't care.
Yeah,
and
I got to. Unfortunately, we're against the clock. It's the end of the hour. I can't change that. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it, and I'll see if we can give you credit for your promo. Somehow we'll work that in, folks. That wraps up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1:00. Jerry Doherty tomorrow morning, right 10:00. Political Thursday. Merry Christmas to you. Frankie Boya is coming up right after the news, or I think right after me. So stay tuned for Frankie, folks. Back tomorrow at 1:00 for the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. Joe out.